Judy Garland spent her life singing about bluebirds, but she died without ever finding them. She was found dead on the bathroom floor early Sunday morning.
There is a new star in the heavens, young, fresh, beautiful.
In a CBS News feature, American audiences were stunned by the hidden truths behind the final days of music legends. Some artists departed with their stomachs still filled with dozens of undissolved pills. Another star stubbornly refused cancer treatment even though he could have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to prolong his life. And most tragically, one singer took her last breath with her hands restrained to a hospital bed. These cold revelations tore away the glittering curtain of the stage, exposing tragedies few had ever imagined. Right after this are the 10 most shocking revelations from the autopsy reports of legendary singers. Among them, the final detail still leaves millions of fans around the world grieving in silence. Bing Crosby's heart stopped after a golf swing, lungs worn down by cigarettes. In the eyes of many generations of audiences, Bing Crosby was always the epitome of elegance. A gentleman with a warm baritone who turned White Christmas into the best-selling song in history. Yet behind that shining image, his real life bore cracks few knew. Beneath the fine suits was a body quietly declining because of one ingrained habit: smoking. The examination after he collapsed at La Moraleja golf course in Madrid showed the cause was not just a heart attack. Years of smoking had left clear traces, severely weakening Crosby's health. Medical records noted he had smoked since he was 15, at times up to 4 packs a day. That habit gradually eroded his body, especially his heart and lungs, turning the passing after a golf swing into something almost inevitable. Close friends recalled that a few weeks before he went to Spain, Crosby showed warning signs. At a party in California, he was short of breath, had to sit for a long rest, then slowly said, "I think my body is betraying me." No one realized at the time it was a premonition. After his death, the public began to notice the unusual signs Crosby had tried to hide. He often coughed persistently backstage and sometimes lost his voice right before recording. There were even shows in the 1970s when he asked a technician to lift the microphone higher to conceal his stooped posture from labored breathing. Fans only saw a poised Bing Crosby on stage, but inside his lungs were exhausted. Crosby's private life was also tied to controversy. His sons from his first marriage accused him of being a harsh, even brutal father who used corporal punishment. The rumor spread across Hollywood, placing the gentle musical figure beside the image of a cold father in real life. After the forensic report revealed the severe lung damage, many wondered whether a tense family life and the pressure to maintain a perfect image had pushed Crosby towards cigarettes as an escape. His death in Madrid not only saddened audiences, but also revived the lingering fear of artists hiding illness behind the spotlight. A heart that stopped after a golf swing seemed to close the golden chapter of a legendary voice while reflecting a truth. A glorious career is sometimes built at the cost of health and even family turmoil. And while people were still talking about the secrets revealed by Crosby's report across the ocean, another name, Frank Sinatra, both close friend and on-stage rival, was showing signs of decline, foreshadowing another dramatic chapter in American music. Frank Sinatra, hiding cancer and heart disease for years.
Before we get on with the big one, I'd like to take this opportunity to level, you might say, to speak for just a second to us, we in the picture business.
Frank Sinatra, America's golden voice who moved millions with My Way and Strangers in the Night. In fact, spent his final years in a quiet battle with illness. Only when he drew his last breath at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in 1998 did the examination lay everything bare: not only severe heart disease, but also bladder cancer, prolonged pneumonia, and other chronic damage. The shocking part is that he knew his condition from the early 1990s. His personal physician urged him multiple times to go public to pursue the best treatment, but Sinatra insisted on secrecy. A nurse who cared for him recalled him whispering, The audience will remember my voice, not the image of a sick old man. That silence kept the public unaware. They saw him appear strong while his body was fading day by day. Rumors about Sinatra's health actually surged in 1994 after he collapsed on stage in Richmond. The press reported it as exhaustion from touring, but the posthumous findings showed it was a clear sign that his heart was overworked. Heart disease, cancer, and lung infections had not appeared overnight. They had built up over many years. Personal habits linked to Sinatra's health remained controversial. Throughout his career, he was known for strong drinks, constant smoking, and frequent late nights with friends in the entertainment world. Members of his band recalled shows where he sipped liquor while singing, treating it as a way to get back in the groove. Those habits directly harmed his lungs and bladder and steadily weakened his heart. The autopsy only clarified the truth. Sinatra's body bore the consequences of the very lifestyle he once thought was just spice for an artist's life. Many fans also remember the 1987 episode when Sinatra abruptly canceled numerous shows without clear reasons. At the time, rumors suggested psychological strain from performance pressure. Looking back now, it was likely when the cancer began to progress. Had he acknowledged it earlier, treatment might have been timely. When Frank Sinatra passed away at 82, the revelations from the report stunned America. People mourned yet felt bittersweet recognition that his radiant legacy was paid for by health, eroded by habits and a private life intertwined with alcohol and cigarettes. My Way became a farewell not only to a legend, but to a man who chose to keep illness hidden to protect his image to his last breath. While America was still grieving the voice in California, another singing screen icon, Doris Day, also reached the end of her journey, and the disclosures from her medical records left the public astonished. Doris Day, the Queen of Cuisera. Sarah quietly departed with failing lungs.
Nothing urgent. The fact that you have a patient who may be dying isn't urgent.
In the public's memory, Doris Day remains the woman with a radiant smile and bright voice, bringing faith in an optimistic world through Que Sera Sera. Yet the autopsy findings revealed a completely opposite truth. She had lived for years with failing lungs, carrying a prolonged chronic illness she chose to hide. When news spread that Doris had passed in Carmel Valley in 2019, the public only heard the official cause: severe pneumonia. But the forensic report later showed the lung damage was not new. Her lungs bore long-standing weakness. Thick scarring proved a chronic illness had tormented her for years. Instead of early hospitalization, Doris chose quiet endurance, not wanting her final image to be a woman bound to tubes in hospital rooms. Rumors about Doris's health had surfaced sporadically since the late 1990s. Once she was seen leaving an animal charity event with shaky steps, needing support. When the press asked, Doris just laughed it off. "I'm just a little tired. Don't worry." Now, after the report, people understand those were signs of a lung condition slowly draining her vitality. Her private life also left wounds tied to her health. The death of her son, Terry Melcher, a talented producer, plunged Doris into crisis. Terry had indirect connections to a shocking case involving Charles Manson, and the trauma haunted her for years. Doctors believed the grief of losing her child, combined with constant anxiety, weakened her immune system, allowing the lung disease to become the final victor. Few realized Doris Day experienced 4 turbulent marriages. She was once a victim of abuse and financial deceit. After each fall, she rose again with a smile. The price, however, was a declining health. The autopsy only confirmed it. Doris's body was exhausted, no longer strong enough to fight. In the years before her passing, Doris almost vanished from Hollywood, appearing only occasionally in animal welfare activities, her greatest passion outside music. People then wondered why she chose seclusion. Now they understand, not only due to personal sorrow, But because she wanted to hide a truth, the body that once lit up the screen had been devastated by lung disease. Doris Day chose a quiet farewell, true to how she lived her final years. Yet the report deepened public compassion behind the emblem of optimism was a woman who bore illness and personal tragedy in silence, closing her journey softly. And as Doris Day's story settled, Hollywood faced another tragedy, this time from a rock and roll legend, Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, a heart enlarged twofold, and the secret of the pills. On a sweltering morning, August 16, 1977, the usually calm Graceland estate in Memphis was shaken. Ginger Alden, Elvis Presley's young fiancée, turned pale when she found him lying motionless on the bathroom floor. Panicking, she shouted and tried to rouse him, but the heavy body didn't respond. Minutes later, sirens echoed across the grounds as Elvis was rushed to Baptist Memorial Hospital. All efforts failed. At 42, the heart of the king of rock and roll had stopped. The forensic report revealed a haunting detail: his heart was nearly twice the normal size, a sign of long, simmering chronic heart disease. But it didn't stop there. In Elvis's stomach, investigators found a cache of undigested pills, tranquilizers, pain relievers, antihypertensives, anti-anxiety medications. Together, they painted a bleak picture. Elvis had relied on medication to cope with pressure, fatigue, and relentless schedules. Close associates said that from the early 1960s, Elvis used pills to keep himself going. A crew member in Las Vegas recalled a time Elvis collapsed in the lounge. Only after swallowing a few pills did he manage to drag himself on stage and sing as if nothing had happened. Few imagined that behind the dazzling lights and cheers was a body so depleted it had to borrow strength from medicine. The truth grew more painful as people remembered the stormy episodes in Elvis's personal life. He had faced criticism for his early relationship with Priscilla Beaulieu when she was only 14, while he was already a star. Though they later married, that story remained a stain, subjecting Elvis to constant public scrutiny. Some journalists analyzing his passing argued that a private life full of controversy combined with loneliness pushed Elvis deeper into medication as a temporary escape. The report also revealed numerous other conditions little known to the public: hepatitis, severe hypertension, and long-standing digestive issues. There were days Elvis couldn't perform without laxatives. A legend who once set the world ablaze had lived with hidden physical pain compounded by the mental strain of scandal and a broken marriage. His death at Graceland closed a golden chapter, but opened a wave of speculation. Many details were sealed. Fueling talk had Elvis truly gone. Through the 1980s, Elvis lives tales popped up everywhere, from barroom chatter to late-night TV. Some swore they saw him in Michigan. Others insisted they glimpsed that familiar figure at a Texas airport. These stories never had solid proof, but became an inseparable piece of the Elvis Presley myth. While the public was still reeling from the secrets around Elvis just 3 years later, the music world witnessed another harrowing event. 4 shots in New York took the life of a legend named John Lennon. John Lennon, the secrets veiled behind 4 fateful shots. In the late 1970s, John Lennon seemed to be living a peaceful life away from the spotlight. He spent much time with Yoko Ono and their son Sean, enjoying family life in their luxurious apartment at the Dakota in the heart of Manhattan. Yet, behind the image of a man seeking calm away from the stage were persistent tensions, pressures, and even hostility from people obsessed with his fame. On the night of December 8, 1980, a heartbreaking incident shook the music world. Mark David Chapman, who had asked Lennon for an autograph just hours earlier, opened fire as Lennon and Yoko approached the Dakota's entrance. Lennon fell in his wife's arms and was rushed to St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital, only a few blocks away. However, doctors including Richard Marx confirmed the loss of blood was too great for any intervention to succeed. Medical notes stated that damage to the chest area and the aorta made survival impossible. What intrigued the public was that the full detailed report has never been released. Authorities only issued a summary, keeping much data sealed. Rumors surged, why keep a case this monumental under wraps? Seasoned New York reporters suggested the report might include contentious details about the firearm shooting distance or wound locations, factors that could fuel doubts that Chapman acted alone. It was no surprise that theories multiplied. For years, Lennon had been a thorn in the side of U.S. authorities. With anti-war songs like Give Peace a Chance and Imagine and close ties to left-leaning activists, he was placed under FBI watch. Declassified files later confirmed that the Nixon administration once regarded Lennon as a national security risk and sought to deport him. Many therefore believed Chapman was merely a pawn in a staged plan used to silence Lennon for good. Findings also indicated Lennon's health before his death was not as robust as many thought. He suffered heavy stress. Chain smoking had weakened his lungs, and traces in his blood hinted he might have used mild sedatives to fight chronic insomnia. Doctors noted this is common among artists under mental strain, but for Lennon, an emblem of freedom and defiance, the truth made fans all the more heart-sore. His private life left lingering echoes. In the 1960s, he had faced rumors of disputes with Paul McCartney, episodes of drinking and brawling in Hamburg bars, and complicated romances before Yoko Ono, each drawing debate. These personal chapters, along with his outspoken political critiques, led him to be both revered and resented. When he fell, those private pieces became fuel for countless theories. Instead of closing the case, John Lennon's autopsy became a nexus of mystery. Four Shots not only took a brilliant songwriter, but also buried a vibrant chapter of America's peace movement. As New York was still in mourning soon after the British public was shaken by another tragedy, a famed musical theater voice passed away in a luxurious London apartment, leaving unanswered questions behind. Number 6. Judy Garland. A life bound to sleeping pills from her teenage years. Amid the sweet melodies of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, few could imagine how many shadows filled Judy Garland's life. The image of little Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz 1939 charmed the world, but behind the camera, Judy was a 16-year-old girl forced into Hollywood's harsh regimen. To maintain a slim figure on screen, MGM required her to take diet pills, then sleeping pills to control her rest. Those tiny tablets, seemingly harmless, gradually became shackles on her youth. By the 1950s, rumors often surfaced that Judy collapsed from exhaustion right on set. Once she was hospitalized for severe fatigue, yet just a few days later was pushed back under bright studio lights. A private doctor admitted that on some days she swallowed dozens of pills at night to sleep and the next morning stimulants to stay alert for recording. It was a loop with no end. Fans only saw a radiant star, while those close to her witnessed day after day how schedules and medication wore her down. Her personal life was no calmer. Marriages fell apart one after another, from director Vincente Minnelli to musician David Rose, and finally Mickey Dean's her last husband. Each divorce sent her into depression, and once more she leaned on pills. Rumors in the industry said Judy at times lost control to the point of forgetting lyrics on stage, leaving audiences both compassionate and heartbroken. Instead of helping her wake up, these personal scandals pushed her deeper into dependency. On the morning of June 22, 1969, in a luxurious Belgravia apartment in London, Judy Garland's eventful journey ended. Her newlywed husband, Mickey Deans, was the first to find her in the bathroom. When the investigation results were announced, the public was stunned Judy had passed away due to medication taken beyond safe limits. But the tragedy did not stop there. The report also showed her body had been severely weakened after years of illness and reliance on medication. A stage legend ultimately living in a fragile body became a bitter reminder of the demands behind the spotlight. Judy Garland's passing left far-reaching consequences. It ignited a lasting debate: should Hollywood bear responsibility for pushing a teenage girl into a cycle of medication? At 16, studios of the Golden Age were criticized for turning stars into money machines regardless of health or longevity. Fans worldwide felt both sympathy and anger upon realizing that stage lights were, in truth, fueled by a cost far too high. After Judy Garland's tragic end, before fans could recover from the loss, the world had to say goodbye to another legend, someone who was not only a symbol of dazzling dance, but also of constant striving: Gene Kelly. Chapter 7. Gene Kelly: Overlooked Strokes and the Price of an Unbreakable Image. In February 1996, news that Gene Kelly passed away at 83 stunned Hollywood. The man who danced joyfully through endless rain in Singin' in the Rain, a symbol of vigor and optimism, ultimately left due to an illness he had quietly faced for years. Medical files and the official report later indicated that his death was not as unexpected as the public had believed. Before that, Kelly had 2 minor strokes in 1994 and 1995. Doctors warned that the vessels in his brain had significant hardening, that the risk of recurrence was extremely high, and urged long hospital care and lifestyle changes. But Gene refused it all. He feared that audiences accustomed to a strong, iron-willed Gene Kelly would have to face the truth that their idol had grown older and frailer. Patricia Ward, his third wife, recalled, "He was obsessed with not letting anyone see him confined to a bed." To Gene, losing the image was scarier than the illness. The final medical review confirmed that Kelly's cerebral vessels had been hardened for many years. This meant that even when he stepped on stage to receive the AFI Life Achievement Award in 1995, he was already carrying a ticking clock in his head that audiences knew nothing about. The disclosure shocked the public. How could a man once seen as invincible choose to ignore medical warnings? Rumors about Kelly's life resurfaced after his passing. In entertainment circles, people whispered that Kelly was extremely strict with himself, even obsessed with the musical hero image, to the point of never allowing any sign of weakness. Some colleagues revealed that even when he felt chest pain or dizziness during late-life rehearsals, he pushed through with a smile. That perfectionism, what helped forge his legend, unintentionally deepened his condition. His personal life, too, may have affected his health. He was famously charming with complex relationships, and turbulent marriages. Biographers argue that emotional ups and downs, along with the pressure to maintain a perfect man image before the public, kept him under constant stress. Chronic stress, coupled with age, likely accelerated cardiovascular issues and led to multiple strokes. The public felt both sorrow and frustration upon learning the truth. Had Gene Kelly followed medical advice, he might have enjoyed a few more peaceful years with his family. But he chose to sacrifice his health to preserve the image, an admirable yet unforgiving choice. Before Hollywood could recover from Gene Kelly's departure, America lost another notably smooth voice, Nat King Cole, whose silk and honey tone ended in lungs severely compromised by a habit he could never quit. Chapter 8. Nat King Cole lungs, darkened by 3 packs a day. Nat King Cole's voice was once likened to a sweet silk ribbon so gentle it touched hearts worldwide. Yet the reality behind those timeless melodies was stark. His body was worn down day by day by a smoking habit dating back to his earliest studio sessions. Cole believed smoke made his voice deeper and more alluring. He even said in an interview, "I need the smoke to make my voice sound fuller." On February 15, 1965, at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, Nat King Cole took his final breath after a long fight with lung cancer. He left at 45, his career still shining, and fans filled with immeasurable grief. His passing serves as a sobering reminder of the heavy consequences of long-term smoking and marks a profound loss for world music. What few knew was that the turns in Cole's personal life pushed him closer to cigarettes. In the 1950s, he faced discrimination, was turned away from hotels, and even physically targeted on stage in Birmingham simply because of his race. Those shocks left deep emotional wounds, leading him to rely more heavily on smoking to calm himself and maintain confidence before predominantly white audiences. Friends recalled that after each humiliating incident, Cole would sit quietly in a corner, finishing cigarette after cigarette as if the smoke could veil the pain. His first marriage to Nadine Robinson ended quickly, while the second to Maria Hawkins was stormy and wearing. Instead of seeking medical help, Cole chose cigarettes as a constant companion. These personal upheavals nurtured a habit that harmed his body, something the posthumous medical report made all too clear. Even in his final months, Cole persisted in recording the album LOVE. Records show he needed supplemental oxygen to breathe, yet he removed it when stepping into the studio, determined not to let listeners hear a weakened voice. A technician recalled he'd finish a take turn to the oxygen, then continue. It sounded as if he refused to admit the end was near. Nat King Cole's passing left fans in shock. An artist who sang of love and hope ultimately departed with lungs harmed by a habit rooted in personal pain. The official report turned his story into a stark example of how private struggles can lead directly to health decline. As the jazz world was still grieving just a few years later, the American public was shaken by the death of Billie Holiday Lady Day, whose medical records revealed even more infuriating truths. Chapter 9. Billie Holiday passing away, while restrained in a hospital bed. They broke the lady and they knew it. That line was repeated after Billie Holiday's death, a bitter accusation aimed at the forces that cornered her. When she was admitted to Metropolitan Hospital in the summer of 1959, Billie was no longer the radiant Lady Day of earlier years. The post-event medical review showed her liver had failed, her heart was weakened, and her lungs severely compromised. Yet even then, authorities ordered that she be kept restrained to the bed, treating her more like a suspect than a musical icon. That painful image appeared on the front page of the New York Daily News, igniting public outrage. How could a voice that once sang of freedom be allowed to depart under such conditions? Looking back, her passing did not stem from illness alone. Billie Holiday's private life was full of fractures, and those cracks contributed to the tragedy. Violent relationships, jealous confrontations, and lonely hotel nights pushed her toward alcohol and substances as an escape. The medical findings clearly indicated the long-term damage to her liver and blood vessels, consequences of a self-destructive lifestyle into which she had fallen through personal turmoil. Moreover, Holiday was monitored by federal authorities for nearly 2 decades because the song Strange Fruit was considered dangerous. Declassified files later showed repeated stings and arrests. The suffocating scrutiny left her living in fear. Researchers believe this psychological pressure hastened her decline, turning an already fragile body into fertile ground for liver and heart complications. Late-life rumors claimed she begged to have the restraints removed so she could pass in peace, but authorities refused. Whatever the truth, the medical record speaks for itself. She died at 44, isolated and exhausted, treated like a suspect even as the world still swooned over her voice. Her death left an unhealed ache in the jazz community and stands as a reminder that scandal pressure and society's severity can not only ruin a career, but also push a body to the brink. And as Americans were still grieving on a Christmas night soon after yet another loss arrived, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra's close friend, chose to close his journey on a sacred holiday. Tatuan, Dean Martin, refusing cancer treatment and passing on Christmas night. In the memoir Memories Are Made of This, Deanna Martin recalls the moment her father sighed and said softly, "I don't want people to remember me with tubes and hospitals. Let them remember the voice, the smile, and the glass in my hand." That line would become a painful foreshadowing for the end of one of America's great icons. In 1993, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, Dean Martin was diagnosed with lung cancer. Top specialists proposed modern chemo and radiation plans with costs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, an enormous sum at the time, yet entirely within his means. Rumor even had it that a private hospital in Switzerland invited him to Europe for more advanced therapy with complete confidentiality. But Dean Martin turned everything down. He refused chemotherapy, refused to travel abroad, refused every chance to extend his life. Family members said Martin wanted to keep his condition secret. Only a few at home knew the full story. The public knew nothing. When the press noticed his obvious weight loss, he would joke, "I'm just eating less to stay trim, don't worry." Even when hospitalized for breathing issues, records were sealed and labeled merely age-related exhaustion. He wanted fans to believe he was still the party king, ageless amid smoke and laughter. The later medical report confirmed that Martin's lungs had been severely damaged by decades of smoking. The illness progressed quickly because he declined treatment. The cause of death was clearly recorded as acute respiratory failure. Doctors involved in the final emergency care said that upon admission, his lungs were functioning at less than 1/3 of normal capacity. In his final 2 years, Martin kept his familiar routine. He often appeared at Beverly Hills lounges, sitting with friends, a cocktail still on the table. One witness recalled, "Some nights his voice trembled and he gasped for air, but when he began 'Everybody Loves Somebody,' the whole room stood and applauded. He smiled as if no illness existed." That deliberate privacy left the public stunned when the truth finally came out through the medical records. There were even whispers that Martin chose Christmas of 1995 to depart, treating it as a farewell in the midst of celebration, the fitting end for an artist who could turn his life into a performance. Whatever the truth, his passing on the night of December 25th brought nationwide sorrow. ABC opened a special broadcast with the line, "America's Saddest Christmas." For millions of families, a season of reunions suddenly became a day of parting. Dean Martin's story in the end was reconstructed by the medical file as a sobering testament. Lung cancer was not only the outcome of tobacco and alcohol, but also the result of his own choices, choosing privacy, refusing treatment, and preserving a suave image until the final note. The stage lights are down, yet the revelations from posthumous medical records still leave us shaken. Behind immortal voices and radiant smiles, many legends paid with illness, private pain, and sometimes deep loneliness in their final moments. These truths are stark, but they also make us cherish their legacy even more, the melodies and songs that became a generation's memories. Which of the 10 stories moved you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss upcoming videos where we'll keep bringing you the unexpected hidden sides of the entertainment world.